been dropping it. Gotta argue with him, cause you know he love a toxic chick. Side him playing, gotta make him understand. Ain't no ring on my finger, you ain't going on my glasses. And my face bomb abstract, rack stuck up shack height. Jury on me flashlight, I've been listening last night. Hit him with that good, make you wanna act right. Boys don't deserve no kid, I know that's right. Big bad bitch and no belly band, take no never listen, I can try to high, give it up. Big bad bitch and not a belly band, take a man, freaking back.
Can I take it back?
Stay till the college ball, where the chop call. Hit 20 grand, spend $1 grand at the bar. Just about his own. J's on my feet, I'm on that Patron. So get like me, 69 cutlass with the bucket seats. Beat in my trunk, bought it just for the freaks. Catch me in the hood, posted at the store. Twiddling in my lap on the phone, counting dough. If a girl choose, let her do a thing. Shit like a mama, nice brain. Everybody love me, I'm so fly. Go to deuces every time I ride by. I know you wonder why I'm so cool. Don't ask me, just do what you do. Meet me in the trail, it's going down. Meet me in the mall, it's going down. Meet me in the club,
we're gonna have some fun for these next
down.
6-7 minutes.
Me guaranteed to go down.
Let's go.
Meet me in the trail, it's going down. Meet me in the mall, it's going down. Meet me in the club, it's going down. Anywhere you meet me, guaranteed to go down.
I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening? I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, acting stupid. What's happening?
Need y'all to do the dance.
Hips tick tock when I dance. On that demon time, she might start her OnlyFans. Big B and that B stand for bands. If you wanna see some real baby, here's your chance. I say left cheek, right cheek, drop it low then swing. Texas up in this thing, put you up on this game. I be parking my frame, gang, 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 gang. If you don't jump to put jeans on, baby, you don't feel my pain. Please don't give me hype. Write my name in ice. Can't argue with these lazy basics. I just raise my price. I'm a boss, I'm a leader. I pull up in my two-seater and my mama was a savage. You got this here from Tina. I'm a savage.
Classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening? I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, moody, nasty, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening?
It's homecoming season, right?
Trying to rain on the thunder. Tell a storm I'm new. I'm a walk, I'm a march on the regular. Painting white flags blue. Lord forgive me, I've been running blind and true. I'm a rain on this bitter love. Tell a sweet I'm new. Ooh, I'm telling these tears going fall away, fall away. Oh, may the last one burn.
Let's go.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains on myself. Oh, let my freedom run in hell.
What you say?
I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves. Oh! What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'm a father, can you hear me? What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'm a father,
I bet you won't. 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 Now when you die, when it's time to die, I bet you won't. I bet you won't. When you need to get your money right, I bet you won't. I bet you got back and you need to flip. I bet you won't. I bet you won't. Big thing. I bet you won't. I bet you won't. What's the deal? You know what it is. Tell me how you feel on that kill. On them yellow people rolling like a wheel off the chain. I don't play no games. You know my name. Getting change on my damn brain. I'm insane.
Take it easy, I like a bees, and now I'm off the easy. Need a breezy, who gon' pop the peas? And she gon' the sheezy for no reason. She just like my steezy. Now she wants the easy, get a room. She gon' hit the bees, and then gon' do her easy.
What it do? I be coming through, and my is true. I'm the truth. Who the are you? I be getting loose to the roof. I'm to the roof. I didn't fool me too. Him, her, y'all ain't you.
And you can get it too. What you trying to do? Balenciaga. Sometimes a 600 for shoes. I'ma move. Get the loot. Let me get my funds. They got plenty. They got plenty. You gon' get you some. I bet you won't.
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 When you die, when it's time to die, I bet you won't.
I bet you
When
won't.
you need to get your money right, I bet you won't.
I bet you
You got
won't.
a pack and you need to flip. I bet you won't.
I bet you won't.
Get this thing to blow.
Yeah, look if you go. Look, Jay on the track. Look if you go. If you go.
You know I had to do it.
Look if you heard it. Look if you get around.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, well I'm a tone holding on your damn street, stomping, jumping, bumping, every car off in this damn thing. Throwing the balls up at these soldiers, screaming and bleeding from their nose. But when we start, that's where we make them hit the flow. Ain't no game off in this thing. We be deep off in your body. Crime on get it started, and we be the hardest. So if a come and run they mouth just like a punch them dead up in this nose, they stomp this out to the flow.
Yeah, we knocking and bucking and ready to fight. I bet ya I'ma throw them things so haters best to think twice. See me, I ain't nothing nice. And climb my beat ain't no stopping. Becky like said that. And that's Osama bin Laden. Like they said, they got popping and I am acting a fool. I wish a hater would get crunk up on this crime I grew. Now enough is enough, boy. I run and get stuck, boy. Love is a must, boy. No, if you buck, boy.
Look if you go, boy. Look if you go, boy. Look if you go, boy. Look if you go, boy.
You gotta get to my favorite part.
Look if you go, boy. Look if you go.
I got the dreads, so you know what my favorite part is.
Look if you go, boy. Look if you go, boy. Look if you go, if you go, if you go, boy. Look if you go, look if you go, look if you go, boy. Jumping off from on the stage, throwing boat like Johnny Cage. On my throwing rides, knocking down a barricade. And then when we be too deep and MOB is too elite. Flawless, flawless, you'll be jawless, getting close to me. Buzzing constantly, rapping in your city street. Broken bones lay alone, scattered across the concrete. Nucking if you bucking, you'll be ducking.
Here come my part.
Oh, in my eyes, you wasn't wise. I think it's time I knock you.
I come in the club, shaking my dreads, throwing these bows and busting these heads. Irrelevant steps on my wrist, best to back up, I think you believe. I been a diamond, committing no crime, not leaving a trace, not leaving a line. We knocking it bucking, cause I got a I'll you away, cause you wasting my time. Stupid, I know what to do. I waste your you my crew. I'm doing what you had, so what you do? You talking about me, then I'm talking to you. You bucking on us, so we living your place. You busting on me, that shit don't get that. I'm cold in the ice and I'm freezing on here. I'm talking so steady, but you cannot tell.
Wait a minute.
What is that?
My time is coming to an end. Can I end it like this? It's homecoming season.
You make me happy. This you can bear. You stood right beside me. Yeah. And I won't forget. And I really love you. You should know. I wanna make sure I'm right, boy. Before I let go. Yeah. You know I thank God sunrise
Okay, we gotta wrap it up.
shines on you. You know there's nothing I would not
Need y'all to hit this note before we go.
do.
before I let you go. I would never let you go before I go.
Thank y'all for y'all time. I had fun. I hope y'all had fun too. Once again, I go by the name of DJ Heat, representing Morgan State University. As I said, I'm so excited because I'm happy to be here with y'all, man. This was a lot of fun. Morgan State, class of 2002. I'm also the official DJ for the Washington Wizards and the Washington Mystics. So we got some more coming up, right? We got the Grownish panel coming up. The moderator for the panel, we have Nicholas Foster. So y'all give it up for Nicholas. He's awesome. He's going to introduce the rest of the panel. Y'all going to have a good time. Y'all going to have fun. My socials is at DJ Heat DC on everything. All right. All right.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody can hear me okay, but just want to start off by saying thank you guys for having me. And I'm going to start off with my name, what school I go to now, and the program that I'm in, and the sport that I played at Morehouse. So my name is Nicholas Foster. I'm a fourth-year college student, currently in my first year at Georgia Tech, but I previously did 3 academic years at Morehouse. And while being at Morehouse, I was also on the golf team as well. So I'll let the other panelists introduce themselves as they see fit.
How you guys doing? My name is Malik Kennedy. I'm a business finance major from Morehouse College. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm also a basketball player at Morehouse, and I appreciate you guys for having me and letting me introduce myself.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Taylor Owens. I am a junior health management and biology double major from Baltimore, Maryland, and I attend the illustrious Howard University. And I serve as the director of scholastic pursuits for the College of Nursing and Allied Health Sciences.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alana Bynes Richardson. I attend the illustrious Morgan State University. I'm a senior multimedia journalism major and the campus news editor for our school's newspaper.
I think you might be muted.
Thank you. Hi.
There you
My name is Samari Coates. Sorry about that. I am a junior at Howard University French major, and I come from New York City.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nina Boyd, and I am a senior psychology major from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I currently am at Spelman College. Nicholas, I believe you're muted.
Okay, make sure everybody's mic is on. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's our last technical difficulty. But to start off this conversation, I'm going to go around and just ask some of the panelists, how did you guys choose your college, and what was like the attraction to it? Like, out of all the schools, I mean, there's hundreds around the country. How did you guys end up at Howard, Morgan State, and Spelman? Oh, and Morehouse as well.
Okay, I guess I'll go
nobody
first.
Wants to, okay, thank you.
So I was kind of like a begrudging legacy. I didn't really want to go to Morgan. My dad went to Morgan, and he took me on a whole little college tour. And I was like, oh, okay, this place is cool, whatever, but let me go see some more colleges. And then I came back for open house, and they really made me feel like family. It was just a great time. They made me feel comfortable. I didn't really want to come out of my shell. I was kind of shy as a freshman, but just going to open house and just seeing how much fun everyone was having, and still, being studious, I was like, oh, maybe I should go here. And it's honestly the best decision I made. I can't imagine being anywhere else. I'm sure there's other great HBCUs, but mine's best. Just letting you guys know that. But I'm happy that I'm here, and I can definitely say that you just have to be open anywhere you go. it's going to be great, especially if it's HBCU, but you have to be open to the opportunities there.
Thank you.
I guess I can go next.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
I
Let's start choosing people.
I chose my HBCU based off of my sixth grade teacher. Her name was Amber Johnson, and she talked about Howard every day. She found a way to let us know, like, this is where I went. All of you need to go there. And majority of our class was African American students, so she just thought that was an opportunity to introduce to us at the time what it meant to, like, the meaning behind attending an HBCU. So I was like, okay, I'll see about it. Once I got to high school, no HBCU was like on my list because I was like terrified of whether or not I was going to receive the right amount of funding. I was a first generation, so like I was terrified. I was like, everybody keeps saying HBCUs don't give money. I don't want to apply, pick a school, and then can't afford to stay. But I ended up getting a scholarship, so I ended up choosing Howard. I actually turned down 4 other full rides to go to Howard, and I didn't have a full ride for Howard. So like, it's definitely been working in my favor. But I am happy with my decision. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And at Alana, I'm sorry, girl, but the HU, we got you beat.
Okay, so like my sisters Alana and Taylor, I also believe that my HBCU is the best HBCU. I am at Spelman College. For those of y'all who didn't hear me the first time, but I think what chose me to be at Spelman was the socially mobilizing environment that Spelman cultivates. It's different from a lot of HBCUs in that it's an all women's college, and something about being in that environment is very uplifting. It's very empowering. It feels safe and secure, which is what led me to ultimately go there.
Guess I'll go. For me, my decision for Morehouse was kind of complicated. It's a pretty complicated one. I played basketball in high school, and I was heavily recruited. I had a lot of offers, and I was actually committed to a university. But due to some issues and stuff that I had, I was ineligible. And Morehouse actually came along with my coach, Brewer, who was a close family friend and wanted to recruit me from a long time. Recruited me and told me that Morehouse would be an amazing opportunity. And being from Canada at the time, I actually didn't know anything about HBCUs or HBCU culture. So when I heard the name Morehouse, it didn't ring a bell. I only knew big schools and the schools that I had offers from. So I went for a visit, and I loved it. It was amazing. I fell in love with it immediately, and it was a decision that I went with, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
So much like Alana, I was kind of reluctant legacy. My whole family basically went to Howard University, and I grew up like around homecoming and all the things that usually drive other people to go to Howard, so I wasn't really attracted to it in the same way that someone else might be. And I only actually applied to like 3 schools. I applied to Howard, Columbia, and a school in London for like film. I got into all 3, and so my parents forced me to go to Howard Acceptance Students Day, and I fell in love. Like, the community was amazing. Like, the people I wouldn't trade them for the world. And like, I like knew instantly that I couldn't go to like a PWI. I had to go to HBCU. I had to be surrounded with like Black people who looked and thought in similar ways like me. And I gotta say, Howard University is unfortunately the best university that you could choose out of any HBCU. So.
Okay, perfect. So after hearing everybody's response, I want to just start with like a little follow-up question or prompt, because I hear people talking about like they have parents telling them, they have school teachers. So I want to ask you guys, what is the difference of influence between like you guys doing your own research and like looking up what's Howard's about, what's Spelman about, and things like that, with like core values and like things like mission statements, and then how do immediate family, like those class teachers, your parents, your coaches, like what type of influence did they have on your college choice?
Well, for me, Once I fully decided I was going to Morgan, my dad wanted to introduce me to anyone and everybody that he knew. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's kind of overwhelming meeting all these people because his experience was definitely different than mine so far. He told me about a lot of distractions, how you can get sucked into parties and stuff like that, hanging out on the bridge. And I'm just like, the whole atmosphere, I feel like, and the vibe is a little bit different than when he was there. So I guess he had somewhat of an influence on me to, watch out for different things, make sure I stay focused. But I really had to kind of navigate on my own, especially with the climate now and everything that's going on. So I feel like it was somewhat of an influence. But once I got there, even though he's still like 30 minutes away, I had to learn how to be an adult at that moment. As soon as I stepped on campus, I was like, okay, I'm by myself kind of, even though I have, other people that I know that he introduced me to. I was just like, this is a new chapter in my life. So I really had to kind of take charge and just tell myself I am an adult now. So what do do adult things. So it was kind of somewhat of an influence, but at the same time, I was in charge.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting to hear because I know I have some HBCU alumni in my family, and I know how their experiences are very dear to their heart, and they have a tendency to almost like push kids like you guys got to go here, like it's the best thing for you, like you're gonna be missing out, and almost like kids are like, oh, am I missing out on something if I don't go to an HBCU for undergrad? So yeah, that was definitely a good perspective to hear. So thank you.
For me, I would say my family impacted my decision a lot, but what I had to realize was, so like starting even early as 8th grade, I was making decisions based off of what will be best for the family and not what will be best for myself, because I'm a family oriented person. So like when I got to college, when I first started making my list, it was based on, okay, would I be close with my relatives? Would I still like be able to attend church? Could I get around on my own without having like to rely on them? But like for some reason it just didn't sit well in my spirit, and I felt like ultimately I'm going to be the one that's impacted the most by my college decision. Like I can't take them on campus with me. It's just going to be me. When I'm sitting in front of a panel or when I'm sitting in front of a scholarship committee, it's just going to be Taylor. Nobody can speak for her. They don't know my experiences. They didn't take my quizzes or my tests for me. It's all me. So once I chose Howard, doing research on my own, every HBCU sounded great because I was like, I'm gonna be with so many different people, like so many different Black people from all over. I'm gonna get to like hear about their experiences, mine. We're gonna adapt, get along with each other. But then like going on campus and then like hearing those different like testimonials and stories from other people, that kind of like helped me set it in stone. Like, okay, this is where I want to go, and I'm making the right decision. But I had to do it for myself. I couldn't do it for everybody else. So like even though I'm doing it for me, what I do for myself, I can return it. I can give it back to everybody else. So it was easy making the decision, but it was hard. But I was glad that I did it on my own.
Definitely. Thank you. Anybody else want to touch on? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nina.
Sure, I'll touch on it just because I have a little bit of a different perspective. I actually transferred schools, so I've been now to 2 HBCUs in my undergrad experience. I started off at Clark Atlanta University, and after my freshman year, I transferred to Spelman. And so what's interesting about my decision to ultimately be at Spelman is I wanted to be at Spelman from the jump. So like I wanted to go to Spelman. So when it came down to it after freshman year, I was very comfortable at Clark. Obviously, I had made friends, I had acclimated to the space, and I no longer wanted to change my plan and go to Spelman again. And so I had my mom in my ear saying like, hey, you like that was your original plan, push, push, push. This is where you need to go. And I was very comfortable. And so I wouldn't say that between me and my mom, she was the main person, telling me, and like I'm sure the legacies that go to Morgan State and Howard, that you guys kind of have a similar experience, and that you hear your parents saying like, okay, well I think this is going to be the best decision for you. But for me, I think if I hadn't had that push, I wouldn't be where I am. And so I'm very grateful for the push actually, because I was supposed to be at Spelman, and I love Clark Atlanta so much, but I think that push was necessary for me. So.
Okay. Perfect. So we're gonna make a slight shift from how you got to college into what you did and or what you are doing now that you guys are all college students. So we all know like school is gonna start slow and it tends to pick up like for everybody in all the same classes around the same time. So how do you deal with or how would you advise other people from your past experience to time manage and just deal with the social life, the schoolwork, the athletics, just everything that's going on as a college student? How would you say you found that balance?
Um, I'll chime in quickly on that. I think, well, I had to kind of learn to manage for a while. I went to prep school in the U.S. Like I said, I was from Toronto, so I left home to go prep school. So I always had to juggle school and athletics. But when you get to college, everything else piles in. The extracurriculars, the social life, like Nick was saying. And I think the biggest thing for me with making that shift was just understanding priorities. Like at the end of the day, if you can't keep your grades up, you can't play ball. If you can't keep your grades up, you can't be in extracurricular activities that have a GPA minimum. Like you have to understand that that's kind of the premise of why you're in school. So you can't let the other things get in the way. So as long as you just prioritize those things and you keep the things that you want to keep close to you, the time management shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's just an adjustment and it takes time, but you'll get there.
Yeah, that's good insight. Thanks, Malik. Anybody else want to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick. Just kind of in agreement with Malik. Like one of the biggest things I noticed with school was definitely just priorities. And then on top of that, like among priorities, like if it's not your grades, like you should make the healthiest decision for you. So like in terms of like staying out late and stuff, like or even staying up late, like just to do work, like it's very important to make sure you get like good amount of sleep because it just helps with your decision making. It helps making sure that you do proper work. And if you're not prioritizing your sleep, like the whole rest of your schedule is kind of thrown off. If you're not prioritizing your health and like eating, the whole rest of your schedule is going to be thrown off. So that's just like one of the important things for me.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So that's actually good transition for the next thing I want to talk about from external well-being and juggling all the extracurriculars to just like focusing on yourself and making sure that you're in a position to excel both academically and athletically is how do you guys deal with stress? Like whether it's the stress of just like an everyday college student life or the stress of the extracurriculars or everything piling up, just like what do you guys find outlets in, to help you balance that stress?
I would say that stress management is probably the most important skill that I have learned in college because you find out really quickly that if you don't take care of your mental health, everything else goes downhill. And so, and I wish I would have started it, around like freshman year, but I really didn't start having a consistent schedule with mental wellness until my junior year. But do things that are relaxing for you. So whatever that may be. I do yoga. I cook a lot. That helps me. But anything that can take you away, especially freshman year, you get very caught up in like how everything's moving. If you can find something that takes you out of that environment, even for an hour a week, it's very helpful in dealing with stress so that your head is not always in your books because it doesn't have to be. And that can become very toxic. So I think it's important to find something that's very relieving for you and stick to it and be consistent with it.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. Anybody else want to touch on that one?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Nina. You have to find something like that you love to do. So some form of self-care. Self-care is different for everyone. So it's whatever you like to do that isn't the same, I guess, in the same aspect as what you do for work. So for me, because I'm a multimedia journalism major, I'm on social media a lot, like posting different flyers, captions, stuff like that. So social media, even though that can be a break for someone else, for me, that's stressful. That causes my stress. So instead of being on there, I'm watching something on Netflix, I'm reading a book, maybe on TikTok because I'm not posting on TikTok constantly, but anything that just kind of takes your mind off of what you're doing or what you're thinking about, or what's just a pressing matter, just take at least, I would say, 30 minutes out of your day just to de-stress, think about everything you need to do, and just take care of yourself, because it's really important.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely good info and good for the high schoolers to know going into college. It's always better to know to be preventative rather than reactive. So it's good that you guys are getting this information, before going into college. But for some of us, we kind of had to take a few L's or kind of learn the hard way, and then you kind of figure out how to balance those things. So we talked about the extracurriculars a little bit. So let's get into the academics, what everybody goes to school for, what is going to be consuming, I hope, most of your time. So the average schedule is around like 15 to 16 credits, and you're not going to know everything in every single class. Like it's pretty much impossible. Like there are going to be topics or subjects or tests or something that is going to trip you up or be difficult, and that's okay. You just need to know who to go to, when to go to them, how to approach them, and be comfortable with asking for help, because you're going to need it, and that's okay. So myself, I can talk about it for a quick minute, but I'm a tutor. I tutor primarily STEM subjects like math, engineering classes, just because that's most of my coursework, so I'm familiar with it and I'm able to help kids with it. But I would say the number one piece of advice that I want to tell the high school kids is go meet your professors. Like every single professor at every single university has office hours, so they're not always scheduled. You might have to email them and set it up yourself, but go ahead and do that. Get in front of them, let them know your face and who you are, and that you're not just one of those kids showing up to class, putting in your AirPods or whatever, just on your laptop shopping, and then you're leaving. Because if they see you, putting in some sort of effort, even if it's a little bit, just 20 minutes or something like that, then they're going to notice that down the road. So if they see you struggling, they might, pull you aside, ask you if you need any help or something like that. But it'll just make the class way smoother if you have a good relationship with your professor. So I'll let somebody else talk on their experience on additional resources academically and just how to balance that.
I can go ahead. I would say, and this is one of my favorite parts about going to an HBCU, but I think what makes HBCUs admirable is how much professors truly care for the well-being of their students, and I'm sure you all can agree with that. Many times professors will make themselves available to help you outside of class. They'll make sure that you're going to get what you need. So, and like Nick said, they also have office hours where you and your classmates can come in at specified times and study with them. And many schools offer free peer tutors. So I'd also recommend getting a tutor for harder classes early on in the semester so that you don't fall behind. But those are the main things that help me.
I was gonna say for myself, once I stepped into my classes, after the first week, after we played, got to know each other, once we started actually receiving assignments, I would just find students primarily just through networking. So utilizing GroupMe, iMessage, just different, because sometimes on campus certain things are just a communal struggle. Like when you're listening and you're talking to other students, you find that sometimes there are just certain things you have to do as a group. So for us on campus at Howard, it seems like we all just don't like math. So we had no choice but to group together so that we could figure it out as one. So I would definitely say just reach out to your classmates. Even if it's a quick conversation, hey, how are you? Are you in the group me? Can we make one, just so that we can keep in contact with each other? Because then you'll have that support system. And then with that, it comes with having accountability partners, having people who will help you identify your time wasters. And then you'll find what you need to prioritize. So definitely reach out to your other classmates, even people who had those professors prior. We all use social media. Easily just make one post and say, hey, have you ever had this professor? Let's do this. Let's get together. Do you have any tips, recommendations? So definitely utilize the other students on campus.
Yes. I want to reiterate what you're saying and just say, I know HBCUs, it's not too many kids that are going to these colleges and universities, so the class sizes are small. So if you're in a class with, let's say, 30 kids, then just make sure, because I know I had a little bit of that in me, you know, especially as a freshman, don't mind, like, 29 kids know everything about what's going on, and I'm the only one that's confused. Like, that happens so much, and that kind of instills, like, oh, I shouldn't ask somebody, or I shouldn't raise my hand and ask this question. That is not how school functions. There are going to be probably more than half the kids that are in there more confused than you, but just willing to help, and that's how they're, you know, able to get caught up. So if you're ever feeling like, I don't want to be the dumb kid in class, like, that's a perfect time to raise your hand, or else, you know, if you don't raise your hand, it could lead to you falling like more and more behind. So I would say go ahead and take the initiative, and don't be afraid in your classes, even if it's 5 kids or 100 kids in a big lecture hall or whatever. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, we can go into a different topic. Okay, this is perfect. What did you guys find yourself explaining to your friends that did not go to an HBCU about the culture and the history? So I would say, like, what are some of the benefits that you were only able to pick up once you became a student, and not just like a prospective student or a high schooler applying to the schools?
For me personally, I was like one of the first people out of like my friends in New York City to go to HBCU. So having gone, like, I had to explain to them how important it would be to like have a community of people that look like you going to the same school as you. And a lot of them, like, they didn't necessarily understand that, especially coming from New York City, which is such a diverse place. But a lot of my friends also did end up coming with me to Howard, and they got it instantly. And then my friends that didn't kind of started regretting it the longer that they stayed at their PWIs.
I think
Yeah,
I
definitely.
definitely,
Go ahead,
I
Malik.
definitely feel that because coming from Toronto, which is in Canada, there is no HBCUs here or anything similar to it or like it. So when people started to kind of get a hold of where I was and how it was, I started actually getting a lot of questions and telling them, you know, kind of the same things. Like, it's amazing to be at a place where you feel at home, where you're around people that look like you, and just about how great the experience was. And then they started seeing my experience on social media, and just from my friends, I would show them stuff and whatnot. And the same thing kind of applies. Like, they were kind of also kind of confused as to how they didn't know what an HBCU was, or they didn't know about Morehouse, or they didn't know about these schools. And they were like, how is this possible? Like, it's like almost like they were so disconnected, right? But yeah, honestly, it was just a bragging point, and it's still a bragging point for me, and I love it. And yeah.
I think for me, it was the networking and how much networking I was able to do because I was treated like family. For my friends who go to PWIs, when they go to financial aid or anything, they're called by their number, by their student ID number or something like that. And I'm like, what? I'm called by my name. So like they get to know me. I know people in the office. If they see me on campus just walking, they'll say hi, like, how are you doing? Have you gotten everything straightened out? So whenever I would post anything on Instagram about just the opportunities I got, internships I got, opportunities I got, meeting new people, meeting celebrities, stuff like that, they're like, oh my gosh, how did you get to do that? And Morgan's doing all that. I'm like, yeah, they're doing all that and stuff like that. And they're just like, oh, wow, I didn't know Morgan had so many connections. And I'm just like, it's all about the connections. And I feel like with the PWI, at least from my friend's experience, you kind of get lost in the flow of just numbers and faces. But at a HBCU, you're known. They get to know you. So I think that's the main difference that I saw.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Alana, because I'll just share with you guys that I'm at in my first semester at Georgia Tech, and making the transition from an HBCU in Morehouse and then going to a school with, 50, 40,000 kids, you do kind of miss like the family aspect of like walking around campus and being able to see just somebody that you know. It doesn't have to be your best friend always, but you're going to see somebody that you know, or some administrator that you had, reached out to last month. Just being able to see a familiar face goes a long way, especially with the ups and downs of like the college life. So you might, the next class could, make your day. So I would definitely consider that in your choice, and don't take it for granted as well. Topic, feel free to just go ahead and talk. If not, that's fine. What would you guys say was one mistake that you made transferring from college that you were like, shoot, like I wish I could take that back, or I wish I had known this going into this event or transition? Yeah, if you guys have an experience like that, please share it.
Me personally, my like first year at Howard, I was really kind of anxious. I had a lot of anxiety surrounding like reaching out for support, whether it be from my family, my advisors, my teachers, or classmates, and just whatever I was struggling with. So like it could be like I missed something in class, like I would feel kind of anxious about like telling the teacher like I didn't understand this, or I didn't really catch on to this, or asking for help from classmates. And like it's really like kind of unnecessary to feel anxious about this because everybody is learning, everybody experiencing something new. This is your teacher's first time teaching a class like the class they'll see before them. So if you have things you're not understanding, like you shouldn't feel uncomfortable to speak up and say that. And you shouldn't feel uncomfortable to talk to your advisor or to your classmates either. And if you do, that is something you should like reach out to somebody about fixing. Like if there's something wrong with your advisor or you're having issues with a professor, you should also be outspoken about those things too.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Before anybody shares their experience, I just want to say, although I just said that they treat you like family at an HBCU, which is the truth, you still have to advocate for yourself. So if you're at a family dinner with 100 people and some of those people are going to be more outspoken, some of those people are going to be quicker than you, but you still have to be able to like hold yourself accountable and be able to walk into the administration offices or your professor's office hours and advocate for yourself. So that's something to definitely consider. But somebody else has an experience to share. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, along the lines of what he was saying, I wish I would have reached out more, and that's on an academic level, but a social level as well. I didn't join like any clubs my freshman year, and I didn't really feel comfortable putting myself out there until sophomore, junior year. And once then, you don't really have a foundation in anything that you've been in since freshman year. So I definitely wish that there was something I would have joined freshman year that I would have stuck out through senior year and continued to do it. That's probably the biggest thing that I think about, because I think it would have been really important for me to make those connections and do something and stick with it for all 4 years. So that's probably the biggest thing I regret.
Okay. Do you have any like clubs or extracurriculars that you want to maybe give to the high school kids, like as they're transitioning into college, that they could look for?
Sure. There's so the main organizations that I'm in now. I was in the Spelman College Glee Club because growing up in church and throughout high school, I sang in the choir, and so it was really like a home kind of anchoring point for me when I got to Spelman, was joining the Glee Club. There are a lot of community service organizations that you can join. Me personally, I'm in a club called Skirts, and it stands for Sisters Keeping It Real Through Service. And I'm in what they call mini skirts because we work with the children. So that's probably one of my favorite things on campus is getting to, weekly you go to an elementary school and you mentor kids. And I was doing that in high school as well. And I do it over the summer. And that's probably the most impactful thing for me. So that's definitely what I would have gone back and stuck with from freshman year. because you're going to need community service hours anyways, and you're helping people, and it just feels good in general. It gets your mind off things. But there are music clubs, different fashion organizations. There's a whirlwind of things that you could join. So just put yourself out there, look into it, because there's going to be hundreds of clubs you can join. So make sure you do.
Yeah, definitely. The point that I wanted to get from Nina saying that was that it doesn't matter what type of high school kid you are. If you're a quote unquote nerd, if you like to stay to yourself and read, they got book clubs for you. If you like to be athletic, they have sports for you. If you like Legos, they probably got a Lego club. If you like cameras, they got a camera. Like, there's unlimited clubs at most universities. So same thing, what we were talking about earlier, like, don't be afraid to go up to the group of people that are already in the club and say, like, how do you join? You know, do you have to have like GPA requirement or anything like that? Or who do I need to speak to about possibly joining? Just don't be scared and just go ahead and put yourself in a position to join those clubs or whatever your interest is.
I was going to say, and don't be afraid to start one on your own. If you have an interest and you don't see it, find that teacher, that professor, someone that can be an advisor for you. Get a group of students who have same interests as you and start it on your own. You don't have to wait for it to be done.
Yes, that is very important. And that's also just like a good skill to have. Like, that's very good leadership if you're able to start a club. So thank you, Alana. Does anybody have any more experience to share about something that you wish you had known before transitioning to college? I'll give you guys like 10 seconds if anybody wants to share. Go ahead. Okay. So I heard that people were kind of bragging on their HBCU. So I guess this question is tailored to that. But what are some unique aspects and / misconceptions about attending your school? So what is something that people are like, oh yeah, that's right on the nose. Like, that's Spelman, that's Morehouse, that sounds like it. And what are things on the other side that people always hear about these schools where you're like, well, you know, now that I'm a student, this is actually how it goes, or this is how things flow. So if you guys have anything on that, go ahead and share it.
I'll go.
Thank you.
So Morgan, a lot of people always say Morgan's such a party school. Like, no one ever gets anything done. Like, everyone's just party, party, party. And yes, we know how to party, but we also know how to study. Like, that's one thing you need to understand, that there's always going to be some party every weekend. But if you have that dedication to your work, we came here to get an education, to get our degree. So you have to know when's the time to party and when's the time to study. It's just having that balance. Also, you know, I think something that's unique, I'm sure other HBCUs do this, but we have professional Morgan Mondays. So to start off the week right, we everyone gets dressed up professionally in their best business clothes, just to have that right mindset going into the start of the week to get things done. We just got promoted to a Research 2 university, which is great. I think we're like one of the, I don't even know, in Maryland, I don't know, but it's just so many good things happening at Morgan. And I think the party and that always overshadows that. But once you get on campus, you see how many students are just dedicated, how many connections you can make, how many networks you can do. So it's just like, it's amazing being on campus. And I think looking in on the outside, you don't always see that. So yeah.
I would say the biggest two that I realized once I got to college, and even before, was that people often say that there's a lack of diversity on HBCU campuses and that they don't prepare you for the real world. And I feel like that is absolutely false, because when I got to Howard, not only did I have to hit the ground running, but it just seemed like so much happened my freshman year that was horrible that we had to learn and grow from. So, for example, I lived in Quad, and it was being renovated at the time, and there was an explosion on the 4th floor of our building. So, like, all the soot from the sprinklers like flooded the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st floor. So like we had to deal with that. We had to like have more roommates. I only had one roommate. I went from having to share a room with one person to there being like 3 other people in my bedroom. So like I just felt like with that, it just showed me that like not only does this prepare you for real life situations because you can't rely on adults like every giving moment, like you have to grow up and you have to like figure out how to do it yourself. It shows you how diverse everybody is because we all didn't come from the same backgrounds. Like there was certain stuff that was common sense to others that like we had to teach some of the other ladies. So I would definitely say lack of diversity and that it doesn't prepare you for the real world.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing. The next response, or sorry, the next question, I want everybody to just try to add a sentence or two, or just your own opinion on this one. But how did you guys make the adjustment from home, living at home, to where you can have your possible own room or a room that you've been in for many years, to transitioning, and now you have a roommate and you're like involved in dorm life and you have to share showers and everything like that. So how did you guys make that transition?
I can go ahead and answer that one. So my freshman year, I stayed in Drew Hall at Howard University. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Drew Hall, but Drew Hall has like communal bathrooms. And I'm an only child, so I grew up. I shared a bathroom with my parents, but I grew up basically having a lot of my own stuff, not really having to worry about living with other people. And so moving into Drew was definitely like kind of a culture shock for a little bit. But it wasn't too bad because I just liked the ability to, the second I wake up, like my friends are right there. Like I could instantly do whatever I really wanted to with my friends at any given moment. And I like the independence too. So it was kind of like a fair trade off.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks.
Just going off what he said, it was a very difficult adjustment for me. I'm very much a homebody. I'm very much a mama's girl. I did not want to leave, and I'm from Ohio, so it's about a 7-hour drive back home. So the best thing that I could do was to make, well, at the time Clark Atlanta, but then I had a whole other experience then making Spelman home, but to make those spaces secure and make them safe and make them your home. Find people that feel like home. The first person you meet is not going to be your best friend. And it doesn't have to be. A lot of people think your roommate has to be your best friend. It doesn't. There's a whole college of people. And of course, your first few months, you're going to stick with your roommate, or you're going to stick with the first people you meet. But you'll learn that you're going to meet a whirlwind of people. I'm in my senior year, and I'm making closer friends now than I had freshman year. So those people are what stabilize you. They're what secure you and where you're at. I brought a whole bunch of stuff from my room at home so that my dorm room looked like that room. You know what I mean? So it's just all about making your new space as secure as possible, which was the most important thing for me.
Mine was a little bit opposite of a lot of the other ones that we heard, solely because I was alone for a long time. That sounds worse than it is. I moved from home for basketball. I went to a prep school, so that's like I lived with family, but I was away from my mom and dad. I was away from my little brothers. I was away from home where I grew up, Toronto. So I moved to DC for a prep school experience. So I had to kind of face that at a younger age. So going into college for me, my experience was a little bit different. But I still had to make the environment my own, like I would always. And some of the things that I would do, because I transitioned through 2 different high schools, so I lived in 3 places prior to moving to Atlanta. One of the main things was kind of making where you stay, like where you live, like your actual home. That's your base, and that was something that made the whole environment really comfortable for me. I didn't have a roommate freshman year, so I didn't really get to do the roommate experience, but I did always find myself at my friends' dorms on campus, like kicking it with them and chilling with them. And I think that was one of the biggest adjustments, but definitely friends, definitely other people, definitely having people in your space, and kind of like Samori said, waking up and them being right there. Like I had a single, but there was other rooms like in area. We all had our own room, but like I would wake up and go upstairs, and they would be there and making food in the morning or something like that. So that was definitely it helped a lot. Living with other people definitely helped a lot.
Cool. Alana or Taylor, you got something to share?
My experiences are kind of similar to everybody else. I have so many siblings. I practically have a starting lineup for a football team. I am the fourth oldest, but there are 5 girls and 6 boys. It's evenly split kind of between my mom and my dad. My parents aren't together, so you know, babies. But through that, like going on campus, and living in Quad, it was an easy shift because I felt like there was still the same amount of people, but it was different because it was all girls, and I'm used to having brothers. So like dealing with the boys was like, okay, you need to make sure you're clean. But like with all the girls, like we all just so happened to be neat freaks. But it was a good like vibe. So the shift wasn't as hard for me. I knew everything. I didn't want to bring anything from home. I was like, I'm escaping. This is about to be the best 4 years of my life. So the shift was definitely easy for me.
I think for me, it wasn't that bad of an adjustment. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, so I was ready to leave, like ready to go. I think the only adjustment was being around people my age finally, and I guess just learning to live with essentially a stranger because I didn't know how my roommate was. I didn't know her personality. I didn't know, when she would want to study, when she would want to sleep. So it was really about just communicating. And I didn't at first I was a bit shy. I didn't know how to talk to her. But once we got into like the flow of things, really just chatting with each other, learning about each other, we had a really great freshman year. I don't think we really had any problems. And then as soon as I could, I became an RA so I could have my own apartment. So I've been living on my own for 3 years now, which is great. But that first year, it definitely was an adjustment, just learning to live with someone that you may not have already known.
No, definitely. That's like a good segue into my roommate experience. I did not know my roommate. However, my roommate's mom and my mom were at Spelman together at the same time. So that's how they knew each other. And I guess they got together and said that, both of their boys were going to be at Morehouse at the same time. So they kind of just like linked us up. So it was kind of strange because it felt like I had an arranged roommate, but I didn't know who he was. So going into it, I was blind like most people are. And then we kind of just slowly like figured out what each other's habits and like patterns were. And it was a very positive experience for me because unfortunately he's not in school anymore, but we still talk all the time. I actually just talked to him yesterday because he was telling me that he bought some golf clubs and that he wanted to play with me. So just because this relationship starts off with you guys being roommates freshman year, you might not be roommates sophomore year, and so on and so forth, but you can still stay in contact with them, and then it could still be one of your close friends.
I would just like to say on top of that, just going off of being outside your comfort zone, I think the most important thing in college is to recognize that you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. You're going to be put in a lot of situations where you don't know what you're doing, where you don't know where you're at or who you're with, it's the first time you actually have to make decisions by yourself. And everyone says it, but if you think about it, when you leave for college, there's no one there. Like it's just you. And so it's the first opportunity. Many high school students have to apply everything that their parents have been teaching them. But if you find peace in knowing that you're going to be okay with being uncomfortable, everything becomes a lot easier. You're going to have to be uncomfortable with staying up to study. You're going to have to be uncomfortable with living with someone or with showering in the same space as other people. You learn to be comfortable in that discomfort, which is the most important thing to take away before you go to school.
Okay, perfect. It's about 5:23. So if there are any last minute pointers, gems, experiences that you guys want to share, feel free to just go ahead and share those now. We have about 7. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. My little point, honestly, is just I know this is super corny and everybody says this and adults say this, but being naive in high school and listening to like the little typical things your parents or your peers would say, like focus on time management, talk to your professors. Like we're in here, we're all still in school and we're telling you these things. Like when I was in high school, I was like, oh, whatever, yeah, blah, blah, blah. No, like those things actually matter. And if I could go back, those are the things that I would really put emphasis on. And just on top of that, just be yourself. Like understand everybody's going into college and everybody's nervous and everybody's kind of feeling the same way you're feeling. Just be yourself and everything will work out for what it's going to work out to be.
I would say that again, just repeating him, like time management and prioritizing is key. Just because you wake up maybe 6, 7 a.m. to go to school does not mean you can do that in college. Like for me, I found college to be a bit easier, but what made it harder was prioritizing. So like different organizations, if you want to go out, if you want to hang out with friends, you can't expect to stay up at 4 a.m. and then get to your 8 a.m. class. Like I realized morning classes were not for me. So just know who you are, know if you can make those morning classes, and just make sure you're prioritizing everything.
Smart. I can just add my little 2 cents really fast. I would just say, off Alana was saying, like, know yourself, know how you were raised, know like your backgrounds. Don't just get to college and then start to wild out because you know your parents aren't there. Like they don't know what you're doing. They don't know how you're portraying yourself and so on and so forth. So stay grounded and just like be true to yourself, even if it like doesn't seem like you fit in at first. Like just be yourself and you'll find your friends.
My little 2 cents. Hopefully this makes sense. But I would say one thing I learned my freshman year is that you can never allow for people to operate on your unspoken expectations. So I feel like one thing you have to do as a college student is always communicate, because if you don't, it will set you up for failure, but you'll also have people trying to reach a level that they never knew existed. So make sure that like what it is that you want, you say. What it is that you believe in, you make known, because if you don't, you can fall, like you'll fall for anything. You'll end up finding yourself in situations that could have easily been avoided had you just opened up and told them like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I'm open to, this is what I'm afraid to try. So if you can give me more insight, do that. But just always make sure that you are not allowing for people to operate on your unspoken expectations.
Good advice. If anybody also wants to share, I know we've been talking about like things that we've learned and kind of like the hits that we've taken as time has gone on. If anybody wants to share like a phrase or a word or anything that that you've taken out on the positive side, so whether you've met like that best friend or something like that, or you've had like a great experience with a professor, anything like that, or a class that you really enjoyed, just go ahead and share that, because it's important for the high schoolers to know that you're going to be stressed with the academics, but there's also a lot of positives and a lot of good relationships to be made as well.
I can start by ending on a happy note. I would say the 2 biggest blessings that I've gotten out of college was joining Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. That's definitely number 1 on my list. And coming in as a close second is I met Nicholas, who's actually my best friend. And for those of y'all who don't know, Spelman and Morehouse and Clark Atlanta University make up the Atlanta University Center, so all of our schools are kind of connected. But those are probably the 2 best things that have happened to me since being in college.
Thank you.
I could go. For me, like 2 of my biggest blessings, first would be my friend group. I just met a lot of really cool, amazing people at Howard. Like I said at the beginning, I would never trade them for the world. Like, I'm so blessed to meet them. And honestly, like the time that college has afforded me, like I feel like what we don't really think about when it comes to college is that like it kind of does give you an opportunity to like take a moment before you fully step into the real world. And talking to my friends that didn't go to college, like they've been hit with so much like stress and anxiety and just different kinds of responsibilities that I don't necessarily have to deal with right now as I try to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah, being grateful is definitely a good perspective to have as a college student, because you're gonna have things piling up on your to-do list, but it's definitely a good position to be in to realize that you're in. If anybody has any last minute blessings or anything positive that's come out of their HBCU experience, share it now. But I just want to add, for our registered guests, don't forget that we have a separate section called It's the Relevance for Me. That's going to begin in a few minutes online.